That same night, my brother showed up with 2 suitcases and a pregnant wife I'd met exactly once. Lauren stood just behind him, her eyes moving across my bedroom. The walls I painted, the shelves I built, every inch paid for with my own money. And then she said, almost casually, "It would be better if you just left the house." My father nodded. My mother stared at the floor. So I left. 3 cardboard boxes. That's all it took to pack 4 years of my life out of a house that had my name, and only my name, on the deed. And what none of them realized was that later that night, Lauren would call me, her voice shaking. "This isn't real. Tell me this isn't real." If you've ever had someone take advantage of you and call it family, take a second. I read every comment. My name is Jasmine Webb. I'm 29 years old, a licensed civil engineer in Texas. And this is the story of how my family tried to take everything from me and why they failed. Let me take you back to the day I signed for that house. I remember the pen, a cheap blue ballpoint, the kind you grab without thinking. That was the pen I used to sign the most expensive document of my life. March 14th, 4 years ago. A title office on Congress Avenue in Austin. The notary stamped the paperwork, slid it across the table, and smiled. "Congratulations, Ms. Webb. It's all yours. All mine." My name, Jasmine Webb, was the only one on that deed. No co-signer, no partner, just me, 25 years old, fresh PE license, a $78,000 starting salary, and a $268,000 FHA loan. Monthly payment, $2,480, due on the 1st of every month, for the next 30 years. The house was more than I needed. 2 stories, a half-finished basement, 3 bedrooms, a backyard with a tree that shed leaves across the driveway every fall. I didn't need 3 bedrooms, I needed 1. But I bought 3 because my father, Tony Webb, 58, a retired plumber with a bad back living off a disability check, had just sold the mobile home he and my mother had lived in for over a decade. They had nowhere else to go. So I made space. The arrangement was simple. They would move in, help with utilities, and we would live as a family under one roof. No lease, no paperwork, just trust. They moved in the following week. My mother brought her collections. My father brought his recliner and his expectations. They never paid a single bill. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was that I spent 4 years believing that if I just kept paying, kept fixing, kept proving myself, eventually they would see my value. They never did. Let me explain the hierarchy in the Webb household, because everything that happens next comes from it. Ethan Webb, my older brother, 33. The kind of charming that gets you a second date but never a real promotion. He worked at a dealership called Lone Star Auto Sales and talked like he was negotiating million-dollar deals. My father adored him. Tony Webb had one rule that shaped everything. Sons carry the name, daughters carry the burden. Ethan was the future. I was the foundation. When Ethan finally graduated community college, after 3 attempts and barely passing statistics, my father threw a backyard party. 16 guests, burgers, beer, a banner that read, "Proud of you, son." When I graduated with honors in civil engineering, cum laude, Dean's List nearly every semester, my father sent a text, 4 words, "Good for you, kid." No punctuation, no celebration. When I passed the PE exam, something fewer than a quarter of engineering graduates achieve, my mother smiled and said, "That's nice, honey. Your brother just got promoted to senior sales." Senior sales? At a car lot, with $45,000 in credit card debt. Tony didn't know about the debt. Or maybe he did, and chose not to care. What I do know is this. He had been quietly loaning Ethan money from his disability checks. $5,000 here, $3,000 there, and then turning to me and saying, "Can you help with bills this month, sweetheart? The prescriptions are expensive." And I always said yes, because that's what a foundation does. It holds everything up until the moment it disappears. Then, one Friday evening, Ethan called me with news that would change everything. But before I get to that call, you need to understand the numbers, because numbers don't lie. In my family, they were the only thing that didn't. Over 4 years, I made 48 mortgage payments, $2,480 each. That's $119,040 in principal and interest alone. On top of that, I covered everything else. Electricity averaged around $400 a month in Texas heat. Water and sewer, about $100. Internet and cable, my father insisted on premium sports, another $220. Groceries, I added at least $180 monthly because my parents ate every meal at home and never once stepped into a store. Total, roughly $155,000 over 4 years. From my income, into a house where I occupied one room and asked for nothing. I painted the exterior myself. Twice. Entire weekends on a ladder. I repaired part of the roof when it started leaking, $4,800 out of pocket. I installed a heating system in the basement because my father said it was too cold, another $3,400. My neighbor, Margaret Collins, 68, retired, had lived next door for over a decade. She saw everything. Every time I climbed a ladder, every bag of mulch, every Saturday morning I was outside at 6 a.m. doing yard work while my parents slept inside. One afternoon she leaned over the fence and called out, "Honey, where's your family when you're up there?" I smiled. "They're inside. That's kind of the point. So they can be comfortable." Margaret looked at me for a moment. I didn't understand that look back then. Now I do. It was pity. Then Ethan called. "Jasmine, I'm coming home, and I'm not coming alone." His voice had that familiar brightness, the one it only got when he needed something. I'd heard it before, when he needed a co-signer, when he borrowed my car for a weekend that turned into 2, when he wanted me to convince Dad to send him more money. This time, he was bringing Lauren, his wife of 8 months, 7 months pregnant. They showed up Friday evening, 2 large suitcases, 3 boxes of baby supplies, and Lauren, stepping out of the car, scanning the house like she was evaluating it for purchase. She was 30, worked part-time as a dental office receptionist, and spoke with the kind of tone that made every sentence feel like a favor. My father was ready. I knew within 30 seconds. The living room had already been rearranged, furniture shifted, space cleared. Tony had known they were coming. He had prepared, and he hadn't told me. Lauren took one look at the living room and shook her head. "This isn't going to work. We need an actual bedroom. I'm 7 months pregnant." My father turned to me, not asked. Turned, the way you'd reposition something that wasn't quite where it belonged. "Clear out your room." "That's my room, Dad. I've lived there for 4 years. And Ethan needs it now. He has a family. I am family. You know what I mean." Lauren said her part, the one you already heard. And then my mother stepped into the hallway, holding 3 flattened cardboard boxes, the same kind. The same size, the same ones I had used when I moved in 4 years earlier. She had kept them, all this time, like she had always known this day would come. I told myself it was temporary. A week, maybe 2, just until things settled. That's what Tony said. Just temporary, Jasmine. Just until things settle down. So I moved into the basement, the one I had spent $3,400 upgrading. Bare concrete walls, a single pull-chain light bulb, a mattress dragged down from the guest closet laid directly on the floor, no frame. The air smelled damp, like mildew and cardboard that had been sitting too long. In one corner, a pipe leaked slowly, dripping in a steady rhythm that kept me awake that first night. Upstairs, Lauren settled in like she had always lived there. The next afternoon, she posted a photo of my old bedroom, now turned into a nursery, a crib, soft pastel decorations, perfect lighting. Caption: "Family always makes room for the next." No one asked whose room it had been the day before. The next morning, Ethan passed me on the stairs. "It's temporary, Jasmine. Don't make it weird." I spent 3 nights in that basement. On the 3rd night, the pipe shifted. Not a burst, just a slow, steady leak. At 3 a.m., I woke up soaked. My back pressed into a damp mattress, water spreading through the fabric. I lay there in the dark staring at the ceiling, their floor, and I thought, I'm paying $2,480 a month to sleep in water, under my own house. The next morning, I went upstairs to make coffee. Lauren was already at the kitchen table, using the espresso machine I had bought. She glanced up. "Oh, you're still here?" That was the moment it clicked. Love and ownership are not the same thing. It happened on a Tuesday. I was sitting in my car in the parking lot at work, eating a granola bar, when my phone buzzed, a notification from my credit monitoring app. I had signed up for it years ago, not out of fear, but because I like tracking systems. The alert read, "New lien detected on property at 214 Cedar Ridge Lane, Austin, Texas." I read it twice, then a third time. I set the granola bar down and opened the full report. A $110,000 mortgage lien, filed through Frost Bank, a local bank, one where my father held his checking account. The borrower's signature on the document, Jasmine Webb. Except, I had never signed anything. I had never been to Frost Bank for any loan. I had never approved any lien on my house. I opened the signature image. At first glance, it looked close enough to pass. But I know my own handwriting. The capital W in Webb was wrong. Mine curves tightly. This one stretched too wide, like someone copying from a scan. And my middle initial, A, I always write it in cursive. This one was printed. Someone had traced my signature from a document, probably the car lease I signed 2 years ago, the one my father had insisted on photocopying for records. I called the bank. A manager confirmed the loan had been processed 3 months earlier, handled by someone identified as a family representative of the property owner. The witness listed on the file: Deborah Webb, my mother, $110,000. My name, my house. Without my knowledge, without my permission. I sat there in the parking lot, both hands gripping the steering wheel, shaking, not out of fear, out of rage. If that lien officially hit my credit within the next 30 days, my score, 761, built over years of discipline, would collapse. And with it, everything I had worked for. The clock had already started. There's a Whataburger off the highway that stays open all night. I drove there and sat until 1 a.m. A black coffee in front of me, a paper napkin flattened against the table. I drew a line down the center. Left side, what I lose if I fight. Right side, what I lose if I don't. The left side was shorter, but heavier. My relationship with my parents, whatever was left of it. The risk of being cut off from the extended family, holiday calls, family gatherings, the illusion of belonging. And Lauren was 7 months pregnant, which meant anything I did would be framed as an attack on a pregnant woman. I could already hear the story Tony would tell. The right side was longer. $110,000 in fraudulent debt tied to my name, a credit score collapsing, the loss of my ability to refinance, to borrow, to function financially as an independent adult, and one more thing, certainty. Absolute, undeniable certainty that if I let this go, they would do it again. Because people who steal from you once and face no consequences don't stop. They escalate. I stared at both columns. Then I crushed the napkin in my hand and threw it away. The decision had already been made the moment I saw that forged signature. The napkin was just confirmation. The next morning, I called Rachel Whitmore. She was a real estate attorney in Austin with nearly 2 decades of experience handling property disputes. A colleague's mother had recommended her. I told her everything. She listened for 6 straight minutes without interrupting. Then she said, calmly, clearly, "Jasmine, what your father did is forgery. What your mother did is aiding it. What your brother did is fraud. From this moment on, you do not say a word to anyone in your family until we have everything documented." For the first time in 4 years, I wasn't spending money to hold a family together. I was spending it to protect myself. Rachel moved quickly. Within 48 hours, she had filed a formal request, under my rights as the property owner, for every document tied to the lien. Frost Bank was required to comply. And they did. Reluctantly. But they did. The file arrived at Rachel's office on a Thursday afternoon. I drove straight there from work. We spread the documents across her conference table like evidence in a criminal case. Because that's exactly what it was. The forged loan document, my signature, or the version someone had traced, sitting at the bottom of page 4. My mother's name on the witness line, Deborah Webb, written in that same distinctive handwriting she'd used for years. Then the transaction breakdown, highlighted in yellow. $45,000 transferred directly to Ethan's credit card account. His entire debt wiped clean in a single wire. $25,000 paid to Lone Star Auto Sales, a down payment on a car. $18,000 withdrawn in cash by Deborah Webb over 3 separate visits, and $22,000 sitting untouched in Tony Webb's personal savings account. A reserve, a cushion, built on my name. $110,000 divided up like gifts, while I slept in a damp basement beneath my own house. Rachel looked at me over her glasses. They thought they were being clever, but you don't forge documents on property you don't own with a bank that logs everything digitally. Then she added something I hadn't even considered. The loan officer, Samuel Carter, had bypassed standard identity verification. No in-person check, no video confirmation, just Tony's word and a photocopied signature. We have more than enough, Rachel said. The real question is, when do you want to move? Day 12. That's how long it took, from the moment I discovered the lien to the moment I walked out of 214 Cedar Ridge Lane. 3 boxes, 1 duffel bag, and a plan. I had signed a lease 3 days earlier, a studio apartment 8 minutes away, about 900 square feet. Clean, quiet, $1,350 a month. I signed it with the same pen I used for mortgage payments. And for the first time, the money felt like it was going somewhere that belonged to me. Packing took less than 2 hours. 4 years of my life, reduced to 3 boxes and a bag. Clothes, laptop, my framed PE license, the small toolbox I had used to fix everything in that house, a photo of my grandmother. Before I left, I placed a white envelope on the kitchen table. Inside, a copy of the deed. My name highlighted, and a single handwritten note. This house is mine, the mortgage is mine. Everything else is about to change. I drove away at 6:15 p.m. The tree in the front yard had just started turning, the edges of the leaves shifting from green to orange. I didn't look back. Tony found the envelope around 7. My mother told me later. He opened it, read it, tore the paper in half, then said, "She's bluffing." What he didn't know, that was just a copy. The original was locked in a safe deposit box, along with every certified document Rachel had secured. He tore up paper and thought he'd won. I let him believe that. He had 18 days left. The first week after I left, the Webb family settled into my house like it had been handed to them. Lauren posted a story from the living room. Finally, a place that feels like home. 187 views. She rearranged the furniture, hung decorations on the door, placed a welcome mat over the threshold I had paid for. Ethan mowed the lawn, probably for the first time in his life, and posted a selfie. Dad, life starts early. He controlled the narrative. He called relatives, old friends, family members. His version was simple. Jasmine moved out. She wanted independence. Strong girl. No mention of the basement. No mention of being pushed out of my own room. No mention of the forged loan. Just a proud father, telling everyone his capable daughter had simply chosen to spread her wings. My mother called me once that week, not to ask how I was doing, not to check if I had eaten, not to say she missed me. She called and asked, "Did you take care of the electric bill before you left? Your dad said the lights flickered last night." I let the silence sit there. 1 second, 2, 3, long enough for the weight of that question to settle. Then I answered. Meanwhile, Rachel and I were moving through a checklist that felt less like paperwork and more like building a case. Fraud complaint to Frost Bank, filed. Formal dispute submitted to all 3 credit bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, each one backed with documentation, timestamps, signatures. And then the final piece, The one that would actually move people. A 30-day notice to vacate, prepared, printed, ready. Addressed, one by one. Tony Webb, Deborah Webb, Ethan Webb, Lauren Webb. Under Texas law, occupants without a lease are entitled to written notice before eviction proceedings can begin. Rachel scheduled the process server for day 17, the same day as Tony's open house. 45 guests. The timing wasn't accidental, it was precise. It started with the heating system. Day 5 after I left, the thermostat glitched, a minor issue. One I had fixed countless times, reset the breaker, recalibrate the sensor. 90 seconds, maybe less if you knew what you were doing. Tony didn't. He called an HVAC company. They quoted him $3,100 just to come out, diagnose, and possibly replace a part. Tony didn't have $3,100. Day 7, the electric bill arrived. $360. Normal for a Texas house running constant temperature control with 4 adults inside. The account was still in my name. The transfer request I had submitted hadn't fully processed yet. Tony called me. "When are you coming back? The house needs you." Not, "We miss you." Not, "Are you okay?" Not even, "Can we talk?" The house needs you. Like I was part of the infrastructure, like wiring, like plumbing, like something that only existed to keep things running. "I'm not coming back, Dad," I said. "You should contact the utility company directly. The account is under my name, and I've already submitted a transfer." "What do you mean, transfer?" "I mean the bills will be in your name next month, or in whoever's name you choose." Silence. Not short, not casual. A full 10 seconds. Then the line went dead. That evening, Lauren sent me a text. I still have it saved, exactly as she wrote it. "This is really selfish timing. I'm due in 8 weeks. Selfish? It's strange how that word always seems to mean the same thing. Inconvenient for someone else. I had poured over $155,000 into that house over 4 years. I had heated the basement so it wouldn't be unbearable. I had repaired the roof so rain wouldn't touch them. I had kept everything running, every single month without fail. And the moment I stopped, the very first moment I wasn't useful, I became selfish. I didn't respond. Some words don't deserve a reply. Some accusations don't deserve an audience. My mother called that Wednesday at 9. She was crying. But not the kind of crying that loses control. This was measured, controlled, rising and falling at just the right moments. The kind of crying that sounds like pain, but works like pressure. "Your father is under a lot of stress," she said. "His back is worse. You know he can't manage that house on his own." "Mom," I said quietly, "I managed that house on my own for 4 years. Dad was there the whole time. That's different. You're young, you're strong. And I'm also the person whose signature was forged on a $110,000 loan. Did you want to talk about that?" The crying stopped. Not slowly. Not fading. Stopped. Like someone pressed pause. Silence stretched across the line. Then softer, almost careful. "Your father said it was for the family." "It was for Ethan's debt," I said. "I have the records, $45,000 to his credit cards, $25,000 for a car. You withdrew $18,000 in cash. Do you want me to read you the dates? You're going to tear this family apart." "The family was already torn apart," I said. "The night you left those boxes outside my bedroom." She hung up. That night, I sat alone in my studio apartment. The room was quiet. Too quiet. On the table in front of me was the comparison sheet Rachel had printed. My real signature on the left, the forgery on the right. I stared at them longer than I meant to, and I asked myself the questions people always ask in moments like this. Am I being too harsh, too cold? Is there another version of this, where nobody loses everything? Where the right thing and the kind thing are the same thing? Then my eyes moved again, to the witness line. Deborah Webb, my mother's handwriting, green ink. The same green pen she had used for grocery lists, birthday cards, the little notes she used to slip into my lunchbox when I was a kid. Have a great day, sweetie. I stared at that ink for a long time, and then I understood something I hadn't let myself understand before. No, I wasn't being too harsh. I was finally being clear. Have you ever had someone you love take your loyalty and use it against you? If you have, share your story. You might help someone else realize they're not alone. Ethan showed up at my apartment the following Thursday evening. No call, no message, just 3 hard knocks on a door he had no business knowing, though I'm almost certain my mother gave it to him. I didn't open it immediately. I checked the camera feed first. Rachel had insisted I install one. He was standing there on the walkway, jaw tight, hands opening and closing at his sides. I opened the door. "What the hell are you doing, Jasmine?" he snapped. "Dad says you're trying to kick us out." "I'm not trying anything," I said. "I'm exercising my legal rights as the property owner." "Property owner?" He laughed, sharp and ugly. "You think a piece of paper makes you better than family?" "That piece of paper is a deed," I said. "And the one you forged with Dad? That's a federal crime." The laugh disappeared. Just like that. His face shifted, not into guilt, into calculation. I had seen that look before. Years of watching him sell cars had taught me exactly when the tone changes. "Look," he said, voice softening. "We can work this out. Lauren's due in 8 weeks. You can't do this to her." "I'm not doing anything to Lauren," I said. "I'm undoing what was done to me." "If you go through with this," he said, "you'll never see your niece or nephew." The words landed, but not the way he expected. He was using a child, an unborn child, as leverage, the same way Tony used family as justification for taking from me. "That's your decision, Ethan," I said. "Not mine." He stood there for a second longer. Then he turned, walked away, and slammed the door hard enough to rattle the frame behind him. The camera captured everything. His face, his voice, the threat. 7:42 p.m. Rachel would have the footage by morning. Some people build walls out of bricks. I was building mine out of evidence. Tony Webb may not have been good with money, but he knew exactly how to work a phone. Within 48 hours of Ethan showing up at my door, my father had already reached every branch of the family tree. Uncle Victor in San Antonio, Aunt Evelyn in Dallas. My grandmother Margaret, 82, living in an assisted care facility outside Houston. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. He called all of them, and he told them the same story. Jasmine abandoned her family. Jasmine is trying to put her pregnant sister-in-law out on the street. Jasmine has changed. The messages started coming in like a coordinated attack. Uncle Victor. "Think carefully about what you're doing, kid." A cousin I barely recognized. "Family comes first. Always." Aunt Evelyn called directly, her voice sharp, controlled. "Your grandmother is upset. I hope you're proud of yourself." I tried explaining. The forged loan, the $110,000, the bank records, the signature that wasn't mine. "I don't believe that," she said flatly. "Tony would never." That sentence, "Tony would never," was the entire structure of my father's strategy. He had spent 58 years building that image. The dependable man. The one who showed up to barbecues with a cooler in hand and a firm handshake. The one who called his mother every Sunday without fail. He had invested decades into that reputation, and now he was cashing it in, using it, to bury me. And it was working. In the court of family opinion, I was already guilty. No evidence required, no defense allowed. I called Rachel and told her everything. She listened. Then she said something that settled into place like weight. "Don't fight the narrative," she said. "Let the documents speak, and they will, at the right moment." "When?" She glanced at the calendar on her desk. "The open house, when all of them are there. 45 people, the perfect audience." I swallowed. "That's in 5 days. Then we have 5 days to prepare." Day 14. The letter arrived at Rachel's office on Frost Bank letterhead. She called me at work. "You're going to want to come in for this." I left during lunch and drove straight there. The document was already laid out on her desk, turned toward me. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. The third paragraph. I will remember those words for the rest of my life. Following an internal compliance review, the signature on the deed of trust addendum does not match the authenticated signature on file for the property owner, Jasmine A. Webb. The associated loan has been suspended pending further investigation. Suspended, not cleared, not resolved, not yet, but suspended. Which meant the lien would not be reported to the credit bureaus. My score, 761, was safe. For now. Rachel continued. The loan officer, Samuel Carter, had been placed on administrative leave effective immediately. The bank's internal audit had flagged multiple violations, the most serious being the complete absence of identity verification. No in-person confirmation, no video authorization, just Tony's word, and a copied signature. Carter later admitted during an internal interview that Tony had been a regular customer, that he had bought him drinks a few times, that he had assured him I was out of town, but fully aware of the transaction. Drinks. My father traded drinks for my financial identity. The lien will be removed within 30 days, Rachel said. But more importantly, the bank now has a vested interest in cooperating with us. They processed a fraudulent loan through employee negligence. They want to contain this. For the first time in 2 weeks, something in my chest loosened. A tightness I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. But the house was still there. And inside it, 4 people who believed they had already won. The process server? I asked. Day 17, Rachel said. We're still on schedule. She gave a small nod. We're still on. The process server's name was Kevin Morales. I never learned his middle name. He was in his 40s, built like someone who had played college football and never quite stopped training. Calm, controlled. The kind of man who delivers bad news for a living and doesn't flinch doing it. Day 15. 2 p.m. Clear Wednesday afternoon. Kevin walked up the front path of 214 Cedar Ridge Lane, stepped over Lauren's new welcome mat, and knocked 3 times. Tony opened the door. Kevin handed him the document. A formal 30-day notice to vacate, issued by the property owner. Me. The notice listed all 4 occupants: Tony Webb, Deborah Webb, Ethan Webb, Lauren Webb. It stated in plain legal terms that they had 30 days to leave the property or face formal eviction proceedings through Travis County Court. According to the affidavit Kevin filed later that evening, Tony read the first page, looked up, read it again, said nothing. The report included a single line. Recipient appeared visibly shaken. Document served successfully at 2:07 p.m. Tony called me 11 minutes later. For the first time in my life, his voice wasn't firm, it wasn't controlled, it cracked. You're evicting us? He said. Your own parents? You forged my name on a $110,000 loan, I said. The bank confirmed it. You have 30 days. I did it for the family. You did it for Ethan's debt, I said. I have the records, every transfer, every withdrawal, every dollar Mom took out in cash. You ungrateful... He stopped himself. The line went dead. 4 minutes later, Ethan called, already shouting. Have you lost your mind? Lauren is due in 6 weeks. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore, Ethan, I said quietly. 2 days remained until Tony's open house. 45 invitations had already gone out. Catering was confirmed. Rental chairs arranged neatly across the backyard. He didn't cancel. He told Deborah, We'll show everyone we're still a family. Jasmine is the one who left. He still believed he controlled the story. Sunday, 1 p.m. The tree in the front yard of 214 Cedar Ridge Lane had turned fully orange, its leaves scattered across the driveway like a seasonal backdrop. Beneath it, Tony Webb had arranged folding tables, a catered spread from a local deli, pink and white balloons tied to chairbacks, and 45 seats lined in rows, like an audience waiting for something to begin. The event had a name, Welcome Baby Webb, a celebration for Ethan and Lauren's incoming child. The first grandchild in the Webb family. Tony had sent reminder texts the day before. Deborah had baked a cake. Lauren wore a new lavender maternity dress and sat in a cushioned chair at the center of the main table, positioned like a guest of honor. People began arriving within the first hour. Uncle Victor in a polo and khaki shorts, standing near the grill. Aunt Evelyn holding a wrapped gift, her mouth set tight. My grandmother Margaret, 82, seated carefully in a padded chair someone had brought just for her. Neighbors from Cedar Ridge Lane, including Margaret Collins, standing at the edge of the yard with a glass of lemonade, her posture quiet, observant. She wasn't there to celebrate, she was there to watch. Ethan's coworkers from Lone Star Auto Sales, Lauren's friends from the dental office, cousins, extended relatives, a few unfamiliar faces. Tony stood at the center of it all. Dress shirt tucked in, sleeves rolled once. He lifted a plastic cup of lemonade and raised it slightly. "The Webb family is growing," he said. "This house, this home, has always been about family." 45 people clapped. Lauren smiled brightly. Ethan wrapped an arm around her. Deborah stood behind the table, arranging plates, smiling for the crowd. No one mentioned me. If anyone asked, Tony had already prepared the answer. Jasmine couldn't make it. She's going through something, needs space. Margaret Collins took a slow sip of her lemonade, said nothing. 1:15 p.m. I was 8 minutes away, sitting in my car, a manila folder resting on the passenger seat. My heart beat steady, but loud enough that I could feel it in my throat. I parked 2 houses down, checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. Gray blazer, black slacks, white blouse, the same outfit I wore to project meetings, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. I didn't look like someone attending a party. I looked like someone delivering a report, because that's exactly what I was about to do. The folder rested on my lap. Inside, a certified copy of the deed, signature comparison, mine on the left, the forged version on the right. The official letter from Frostbank confirming the loan suspension. Transaction records, every dollar accounted for. Rachel had organized everything. Tabbed, ordered, clean. Like evidence. 2:15 p.m. The party had been running for over an hour. People were eating, talking, moving across the yard in small clusters. A couple of kids chased each other near the fence. The balloons shifted gently in the breeze. Tony saw me first. He stood near the porch mid-conversation, and in less than 2 seconds, his face changed. Surprise, irritation. Then something else, something closer to fear than I had ever seen on him before. He walked toward me quickly. "What are you doing here?" "I'm at my house," I said. "The one with my name on the deed." "Don't make a scene. I'm not the one who forged a signature on a mortgage." His hand closed around my arm. Not violent, but firm enough to steer. "Lower your voice." A voice cut through the moment. Clear, steady. "Tony, take your hand off her." Margaret Collins, 6 feet away, lemonade still in her hand, expression unmoving. Tony let go. A few heads turned, then more. Lauren appeared in the doorway, a gift bag still hanging from her hand. She saw me, and all the color drained from her face. Why is she here? Now everyone was watching. All 45. I stepped up onto the porch, 3 steps above the yard, high enough to be seen. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Silence travels farther than shouting when people are already paying attention. "Most of you were told I moved out because I wanted space," I said. "That's not what happened." I opened the folder. "This house is in my name. Only my name. I bought it 4 years ago with an FHA loan. I've made every payment. $2,480 a month, 48 months, over $119,000. My parents contributed nothing." Tony stepped forward. "Jasmine, stop." I didn't look at him. 3 weeks ago, I discovered that my father, with my mother as a witness, forged my signature on a $110,000 loan through Frostbank. I held up the comparison sheet. "This is my real signature." I pointed left. "This is the one on the loan." I pointed right. "They are not the same." The bank confirmed it in writing. I lifted the official letter. The loan has been suspended. The bank is investigating. Then the transaction summary. $45,000 paid off Ethan's credit card debt. $25,000 went to a car dealership for a down payment. $18,000 withdrawn in cash by my mother. And $22,000 is sitting in my father's account right now. I paused, then said it clearly. My parents stole $110,000 from me using my name. The yard went silent. Not polite silence, not the kind between speeches, a heavy, airless silence, the kind that settles when a lie collapses in real time. Aunt Evelyn slowly set her cup down. Uncle Victor stared at Tony like he didn't recognize him. Then Margaret Collins spoke, loud enough for everyone to hear. I've lived next door for over 10 years. I've watched this girl take care of that house by herself, every season, every repair. And they put her in the basement. I placed the folder on the porch railing. I'm not here for revenge, I said. I'm here because everyone standing here deserves to know the truth before they celebrate this family. Lauren stood slowly, one hand gripping the armrest, the other resting on her stomach. Her face had gone pale. She looked at Ethan, not like a wife, like someone seeing a stranger. Tell me this isn't real. Ethan didn't move. His eyes stayed locked on the ground, somewhere between his shoes and the edge of the lawn. His mouth opened, closed. Nothing came out. Ethan, Lauren's voice lifted, sharp, almost unfamiliar. Tell me the $45,000 isn't real. Tell me you didn't use stolen money to wipe out your debt. It's complicated, Laure. It's not complicated, she said, louder now. Tell me it's not true. Her voice cracked across the yard like something breaking. A child near the fence stopped running. Uncle Victor slowly lowered the plate in his hands. My grandmother Margaret, seated in her chair, gripped both armrests and stared at her son with a stillness that felt like judgment forming. Tony tried to take control. He stepped forward, hands raised slightly, voice projecting. Everyone, let's just calm down. This is a family matter. Uncle Victor cut him off. A family matter? He said, voice steady but sharp. You forged your daughter's name, Tony. That's not a family matter. That's a crime. Aunt Evelyn, who had told me just days earlier that my grandmother was upset because of me, picked up the gift she had brought, paused, then quietly put it back into her bag. She stepped away from the table, didn't say a word. Then my grandmother spoke. Her voice was thin with age, but it carried. Tony, she said, I did not raise you to steal. Mom, just sit down, Tony snapped. This isn't enough. The word didn't come from me. It came from her, and for the first time that afternoon, Tony stopped. He didn't argue, didn't defend himself, didn't explain. He just sat down, in the middle of his own party, in front of 45 people, and said nothing. Lauren turned and walked inside. The screen door slammed behind her. One by one, people began to gather their things. No one reached for the leftover cake. No one offered congratulations. No one stayed. The open house was over. The illusion was over. The house was mine. An hour later, the yard looked like something abandoned halfway through. Tables still standing, paper plates scattered across the grass, pink and white balloons tied to the mailbox, drifting in a breeze that no longer had anything to celebrate. I sat in my car at the curb, engine off, hands resting on my knees. I had expected something sharp, victory, relief, closure, some kind of clean, satisfying release. Instead, I felt empty, like pulling out a tooth that had been rotting for years. Necessary, correct, and still, nothing about it felt good. Through the front window, I could see Tony sitting in the living room, just sitting, not moving. Deborah was in the kitchen. I could see her shadow through the curtain, wiping the counter over and over again, the way she always did when she didn't know what else to do. Upstairs, behind the closed nursery door, the room that used to be mine, Lauren had locked Ethan out. Even from the curb I could hear her voice, muffled but clear enough. You told me you got a bonus. A bonus, Ethan. You lied to me for 3 months. I was going to tell you. When? She shot back. After the baby was born? After we moved into a house that isn't even ours? A car pulled up behind mine. Uncle Victor. He stepped out, walked up to my window, and stood there for a moment before speaking. I owe you an apology, he said. I believed your father. I shouldn't have. Thank you, I said quietly. That means a lot. He nodded once. No speech, no excuses, just that. Then he got back into his car and drove away. Aunt Evelyn left without stopping, but 2 days later, she would send a long message, carefully written, rewritten, edited, an apology that took effort to say. I started the engine, pulled away from Cedar Ridge Lane. In the rearview mirror, the balloon still floated above the mailbox, pink and white, celebrating something that no longer existed. Lauren called that night, 9:30 p.m. Her voice wasn't what I expected. Not angry, not emotional, flat. The voice of someone who had moved past reaction and into reality. I need to know everything, she said. Every dollar, every lie. I hesitated. This was the same woman who had told me to leave my own house, the same one who had posted my bedroom online like a trophy, the same one who had called me selfish for not paying bills on a house she lived in for free. But she was also 7 months pregnant, and had just learned that the life she thought she was building was built on stolen money. Whatever she had been before, right now, she deserved the truth. I sent her everything. Every transaction, every record, every line item. 15 minutes passed. No reply. Then her name appeared again. The $25,000 for the car, she said. He told me that was a dealership discount, said he earned it. I'm sorry, Lauren, I said. I really am. Don't be, she said quietly. I'm the one who told you to leave your own house. A pause, long enough to feel. I didn't know it was your house, she continued. Tony told me it was a family property, passed down from your grandparents, that's what he said. It was never a family property, I said. I bought it myself, when I was 25. Silence again, then softer. I owe you an apology, a real one. Not tonight. I can't do it tonight, but I will. Before she hung up, she added one more thing, something I hadn't known. Ethan also owed her $7,000, money she had lent him before the wedding. Money he had promised, sworn, that he would repay once the baby arrived. She was starting to recognize the pattern I had spent 4 years learning, piece by piece. Her last words to me that night. I'm calling my mom tomorrow. I'm not raising this baby in a house built on lies. She meant it. The week after the open house, the Webb family didn't just fracture. It collapsed, like a structure with its load-bearing wall removed. And I would know. I'm an engineer. I understand exactly what happens when the one element holding everything up is suddenly gone. Lauren moved back to her mother's house in San Antonio, about an hour and a half away. Ethan called her 14 times that first day. She answered none of them. By the 3rd day, her relationship status disappeared. Not single, not it's complicated, just blank, which somehow said more than either option ever could. Ethan unraveled quickly. Without Lauren, without the narrative of father-to-be, without the image he had been leaning on. He was just a 33-year-old man sleeping on a sofa, in his sister's house, except it wasn't his house. It had never been his house. It was just his sister's. Tony, for the first time in Ethan's life, turned on him. If you weren't drowning in debt, none of this would have happened. The golden child, finally meeting the other side of the pedestal. Tony himself began to come apart more quietly, more slowly. He canceled his weekly poker night for the first time in over a decade, told his friends it was family issues, but 2 of those men had been at the open house. They already knew. The phone calls he used to receive, relatives checking in, friends inviting him out, began to fade. Uncle Victor stopped calling entirely. My grandmother Margaret didn't answer him for 3 days straight. Deborah called me once a day, every day. Same tone, same words. Please come home, we can fix this. And every time I gave her the same answer. There's nothing to fix, Mom. There's only what comes next. That Friday, a letter arrived at 214 Cedar Ridge Lane from Frost Bank. A formal request. Tony and Deborah were required to appear in person at the branch. The bank had its own concerns now, and Tony was running out of people willing to believe his version of events. The internet doesn't protect secrets, and it's even less forgiving when those secrets involve baby showers and stolen mortgages. Lauren deleted the Instagram post. Family always makes room for the next generation. The one with over 200 likes, gone. But screenshots don't disappear. Within a day, one of her coworkers posted something vague, but pointed. Imagine finding out the house you thought was a gift was actually taken from someone else. Lauren wasn't named. She didn't have to be. The people who needed to understand did. On Cedar Ridge Lane, information moved fast. Not loudly, but efficiently. Margaret Collins didn't gossip. That wasn't who she was. But when neighbors asked, she gave them one sentence. I watched that girl build that house with her own hands. You should ask Tony what he built. She never said more than that. She didn't need to. People filled in the rest themselves. At Lone Star Auto Sales, 2 of Ethan's co-workers had been at the open house. They had seen everything. The documents, the confrontation, Lauren's reaction, Tony being told to sit down by his own mother. Monday morning, one of them asked, Hey, wasn't that your sister's house? Ethan didn't answer. He requested 3 days off. His manager approved it without hesitation. Some silences carry more weight than any explanation. Aunt Evelyn texted me the following Tuesday. The message was longer than I expected, and more honest than I thought she was capable of. Jasmine, I'm sorry. I should have listened before I judged you. I always wondered how Ethan could afford that car. Now I understand. I hope one day you can forgive me. I didn't reply right away, but I kept the message. Some apologies need time, before you know what they mean. Day 30. The eviction deadline. Tuesday morning. No extensions. No negotiations. No last-minute calls that changed anything. Rachel sent a final notice to the house. If they had not vacated by the end of the day, we would proceed with a formal eviction through Travis County Court. The letter was addressed to Tony, sent certified. He signed for it. That signature, at least, was his own. Tony called me that afternoon. His voice was different. Not angry, not forceful, not even fractured like before. Just empty. The voice of someone who had run out of people to blame and hadn't yet figured out how to look inward. Where are we supposed to go, Jasmine? I've already looked into that, I said. There are 2 apartments on Elm Street, $1,200 and $1,400 a month. Your disability income covers rent. Mom can work part-time. That's where you start. Silence. I'm not leaving you with nothing, I added. I'm telling you that you can't stay in a house you took from me. There's a difference. I didn't take anything. Yes, you did. Another pause, longer this time. Then, okay. One word, small, heavy, the heaviest word he had ever said to me. Deborah started packing the next morning. Tony sat in his recliner and watched. Ethan had already moved out 2 weeks earlier, staying with a friend. He came back once to collect what was left of his things. 2 boxes. He didn't look at me, didn't say anything, just carried them out. Day 33. Tony and Deborah moved into the smaller apartment on Elm Street, 1 bedroom, ground level, a fraction of the space they had occupied, for free, in my house. Tony said nothing as he locked the door for the last time. Deborah paused at the entrance, looked back at the house, then at me, standing by my car. She gave a small nod, slow, quiet, then walked to the passenger side of the truck. I handed my father the apartment listings, because I couldn't hand him nothing. Even after everything, I couldn't become what he had been to me. The legal aftermath unfolded more quietly, but it was just as final. Frostbank completed its internal investigation 6 weeks after the open house. The result? The $110,000 loan was voided in full. The lien on 214 Cedar Ridge Lane was removed from all property records. The fraudulent entry on my credit file was erased through formal disputes with Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. My score, which had never actually dropped, thanks to Rachel's early intervention, rose from 761 to 774 once the correction was finalized. Samuel Carter, the loan officer who had approved the application based on Tony's word and a few casual favors, was terminated. The bank sent a formal apology. They also offered $5,000 as a goodwill payment. I declined. Instead, I asked for something else. A written commitment that Frostbank would require in-person identity verification for all future mortgage applications. They agreed. Rachel had it notarized. The next question was harder. Criminal charges. Rachel laid it out clearly. What Tony and Deborah had done, signing my name on a financial instrument, met the legal definition of forgery under Texas law. What Ethan had done, knowingly accepting the proceeds, qualified as fraud. I had the right to file. I chose not to, not because they didn't deserve it, but because I didn't want to spend the next 2 years sitting in courtrooms, reliving the worst thing my family had ever done to me. I had already won. I had my house back, my credit, my name. I didn't need a conviction to prove I was right. Rachel still sent one final letter. Formal, precise. Ms. Webb has chosen not to pursue criminal charges at this time. This decision is a courtesy, not an entitlement. Any future unauthorized use of Ms. Webb's identity or property will be referred directly to law enforcement. Deborah told me later. Tony read that letter twice, folded it carefully, placed it in a drawer. He never mentioned it again. Some warnings don't need volume. They just need permanence. 2 months after the open house, I sat at the small kitchen table in my studio apartment, the place I had rented as an exit, and opened my laptop. I wrote an email. Not to Rachel, not to the bank, to my family, all 3 of them. Tony, Deborah, Ethan. It took me 4 hours, not because the language was complicated, but because I wanted every sentence to function like a wall with a door in it, strong enough to protect me, open enough to prove I wasn't them. The email had 3 parts. The first was financial. I will not provide financial support for rent, utilities, or personal expenses. If you need assistance, I can refer you to local community resources. The second was about communication. I am open to contact, but only under specific conditions. No guilt-based language. No demands. No discussion of the house or the loan. If these boundaries are crossed, I will pause contact for 90 days. The third was about the future. If trust is rebuilt, through consistent actions over time, not words, I am open to a relationship. But it will not look the way it did before. I read it 6 times, adjusted a few words, removed anything that sounded like anger, kept everything that sounded like truth. Then I hit send. Tony never responded. Not that day. Not later. Not at all. Deborah replied 2 days later. I understand. I'm sorry, Jasmine. I truly am. Ethan responded 2 weeks after that. 4 words. I get it. Which could have meant growth or exhaustion. I didn't try to decide which. For the first time, I didn't need to. I had spent 4 years asking myself if I was too much, too cold, too difficult. Writing that email, setting terms I could point to, boundaries I could hold, was the first time I felt like I was exactly enough. Have you ever had to draw a line with someone you love? Not with anger, but with something written. How did it feel? Tell me. You might not be the only one holding that line. 3 months after the open house, Lauren gave birth to a girl, 7 pounds, 4 ounces, Lily Mae Webb, born at a hospital near her mother's home in San Antonio. Ethan wasn't there. He wasn't invited. Lauren sent me a photo the next morning. A small face wrapped in a white blanket, eyes closed, one tiny hand resting against her cheek. Underneath it, a message longer than anything she had ever sent me. Jasmine, I said things to you in a house that was never mine to claim. I was wrong. I believed what I was told because it was easier. That's on me. You don't owe me anything. But if you ever want to meet Lily, she has your eyes. The door is open, no pressure, no timeline. I looked at that photo for a long time, longer than I expected. Then, I cried. For the first time since I left Cedar Ridge Lane, not from anger, not from grief, but from something loosening, something I hadn't realized had been tight for so long. I replied, "Thank you, Lauren. That means more than you know. I'd like to meet Lily, when the time is right." Lauren had already filed for separation. She wasn't going back. Later, she told me something I hadn't expected to hear, that the $7,000 Ethan owed her was the smallest of his debts. He called once, a few weeks after Lily was born, asked if he could bring her to see me. I said yes, but not at my house. At a coffee shop, in town, public, neutral, a boundary I didn't explain, and one he didn't challenge. That alone told me something had shifted. Forgiveness isn't a switch, it's a faucet, and I decide how much gets through. 6 months after the open house, I moved back into 214 Cedar Ridge Lane. My house, my name on the deed, my hand on the doorknob, my key in the lock. I stood there for a moment before turning it, not because I was unsure, but because I wanted to feel it, the difference. I repainted every room, new colors, not to erase what happened, but because I finally had the right to choose what stayed. Soft gray in the bedroom, warm white in the kitchen, the basement, the place I once slept on a damp mattress, got a full renovation, new flooring, moisture barrier, recessed lighting. I never wanted to look at bare concrete again. Margaret Collins came by that first afternoon. She brought a small lavender plant, set it gently on the porch railing, then squeezed my hand and said, "Welcome home, honey. This time for real." At work, the promotion I had been working toward came through. Senior project engineer, salary $104,000 a year. I signed the offer letter at the same desk where I had first seen the alert, the one that changed everything. It felt complete. I started writing, not reports, not technical documents, words. At first a blog, personal essays, about family systems, about what it costs to be the reliable one, about what happens when people confuse your labor with your love. The first post, the basement test, how I knew it was time to leave, was shared over 4,000 times in its first month. A small publisher reached out. They wanted more. A book. I signed a contract for The Deed Is My Name, Reclaiming Your Life from Family That Takes Too Much. Publication timeline, 8 months. Tony and Deborah now live on Elm Street. He calls once a month. The conversations are short, awkward, but there are no demands. That, by itself, is progress. Ethan works at a dealership in a neighboring city. He sees Lily every couple of weeks. He's quieter now, less certain. Whether that's growth or just fatigue, I don't try to decide. I don't need to anymore. I met Lily on a Tuesday afternoon, at a coffee shop. She was 3 months old, asleep in her carrier. Ethan handed her to me, and I held her. Warm, small, weightless in a way that felt impossible. And I realized something. I didn't lose a family. I let go of a version of family that was never real. And in doing that, I made space for something better. The house is quiet now. But it's not the same kind of quiet. It's not the silence of being overlooked or dismissed. It's peace. The kind that comes from control, from clarity, from knowing where you stand and refusing to move from it. That's my story. And if there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this. Love should never require you to disappear to prove it exists. If you're the one holding everything together, paying, fixing, sacrificing, while being overlooked, questioned, or minimized. That isn't love. That's dependency wearing a familiar face. And the longer you stay, the more you start believing that your worth is tied to how much you can endure. It's not. Setting boundaries will feel wrong at first. It will feel cold. It will feel like you're breaking something important. But sometimes, what you're breaking isn't a family. It's a pattern that was slowly breaking you. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to choose yourself without guilt. And when you do, you may lose people. But you won't lose yourself. And that's the only thing you can't afford to give away. And if this story stayed with you, if even a part of it felt familiar, take a moment to support the channel. Hit like, not just for me, but for every person who is still finding the courage to walk away from what's breaking them. It takes to rebuild your life on your own terms, and I'd really like to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose yourself over family? What did it cost you, and what did it give you back? Leave a comment. Your story might be the one someone else needs to read tonight, and if you know someone who's still stuck in a situation like this, share this video with them. Sometimes, the first step isn't leaving, it's realizing you're allowed to. Thank you for being here.